Joe Madison compares racism to a virus. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Thom Hartmann here with you. We're talking with Joe Madison, the Black Eagle, over on Sirius XM 126, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, Eastern time, of course. JoeMadison.com, the website, Madison Sirius XM, the Twitter handle. Joe, as we hit the break there, you were talking about how we're never going to get rid of racism in America, and how it's like a virus. We are, we have succeeded in containing some viruses. How do we best contain or eliminate the impacts of racism so that basically racists are left to mumbling to themselves, but there's not much they can do in the public square?
Let's go back. I think we first have to agree. Can we equate it to a virus? And, I think it's a misnomer when we say, we're going to kill this virus, this COVID-19. No, that virus will always be with us. Now, what you have to do is that you have to, and you ask the question, you have to contain it so that it doesn't become mainstream. And you have to be able to look at all your institutions. Let's take the institution we're part of, and that is media, the media platform. The media has been and is still engaged in engineering hate. Look at what has just happened with the discussion about Facebook. All of a sudden, Facebook has gotten religion, and what they allowed, what Fox was allowed to perpetrate. You have to constantly prevent it from becoming mainstream, because what happens is that racism will attach itself to any institution, any entity that it can. It penetrates into the very psyche of people, and then it replicates itself. So instead of a mob wearing white hoods and robes, you got some guy with a helmet with horns wearing fur and mega cats. That's how you fight it. You have to do what scientists do with a virus. You always have to look for an antidote, and you have to engage everyone in that fight. We must prevent it from becoming mainstream. But let me tell you, it's always going to be with us. It is in the DNA of the United States of America. And I know that's not the most popular thing to say on a day that we honor a man who talked about love and brotherhood and sisterhood. But I think if you go back and you read his last speech, Then to the Mountaintop, a lot of people always get stuck on the climax of that speech, but they should go back and reread it and listen to it. He talks about boycotting Coca-Cola, seal test, and most people don't even know what seal test ice cream is. He talked about we may have to use these different mechanisms in order to make sure it doesn't get into the mainstream of America. But Thom, it is part of our DNA, and I just think we just have to always be on the lookout on how to prevent it from spreading.
Dr. King had specific suggestions, in addition to calling out racism, but nonviolence, the nonviolence of Jesus, essentially. Gandhi, in a more modern era, was kind of his polar star. it seems. There were a number of other people. Malcolm X, for example, had somewhat different solutions. How do you see, what do you think is the best strategy for, and not just for the African American community, but for their white allies and of all races across the country in America to work toward this goal, Joe?
Let's go back to a point you bring up Malcolm X. That Malcolm X, you got to remember, Malcolm X evolved. And folk always know about there was a younger Malcolm X, and then there was the Shabazz, the Malcolm X, who also gave a great speech that talked about the ballot or the bullet. He didn't say the ballot and the bullet. So that was the answer. That's the answer to your question. Look at the power that the ballot had in 2020. Look, it drove you. I heard you say we're going to talk about whether Donald Trump is going crazy. And no, it isn't about is he going crazy. He was crazy before he became president. And look at what he did. Look what happened. What happened because of Pennsylvania. Let's just deal with it. Philadelphia, Michigan, Detroit, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and what did and Georgia, Atlanta? What did they all have in common? The power of the ballot. And by the way, not a shot was fired. Not a person was killed or stampled. Not a policeman was run over. And so therefore, when you ask what changes is the power of the ballot, which changes public policy, and which is an antidote to those who, in fact, would perpetrate the mutation of racism. And think about this. Racism has mutated to the founders saying that black people are 3/5 human beings, which really was a power move because the South had more black folk in their states than they had white people. So it was arithmetic. To now, where to the Klan with hoods, and they came into existence because black people in the South, because of Reconstruction, was gaining political control, and to now where you have these white supremacists who then take over the Capitol. So the politics now has to be that we hold these people accountable, every last single one of them. And my position is you give them no quarters. You give them no quarter because we all know that, and you've said it, I've said it, when Black Lives Matter was thinking of last summer about not last summer, but I guess a couple of summers ago, whenever it was, about holding a rally and a couple of hundred people were going to show up, they turned out that not only the National Guard, but the National Guard was armed. So this is the solution. You're never going to kill. Look, the polio virus, the smallpox virus, the plague, those viruses still exist. All it takes is the right condition, and it will sprout again. It will infect, and we just have to be honest about it. And it infects every institution in our human existence, from religion to politics to education to media, you name it. I don't think, maybe with the exception of Antarctica, that there is a continent where racism doesn't exist. You lived in Germany. You know what it's like, and you know what the Germans did after World War II to try to eradicate. And look what happened. It did what? It mutated and popped up again.
Yep. I'm going to hit a break here in 5 seconds, but it seems to me that Trump has unleashed this virus in a whole brand new way on the commercial side. But how? It seems to me that Trump has set this entire country back something on the order of 50 or 60 years, not just with regards to race, but with regards to a whole bunch of stuff, science denial and know-nothingism and the introduction of violence and brutality as a tool of politics and just all kinds of stuff. What's your sense of the impact of this, and how is it differently impacting the white folks and people of color across the country?
Okay, and when we come back, I'll just answer it. But I think what it has done, it has forced them, like we did in the 60s, 50 years ago. You got to make a choice as to what side you're on, who you identify with. And I think that's one of the benefits. There is no room for neutrality in this situation. Yet no one can be neutral in what happened last week. You can't be neutral. And and I'll say this, but Dante, the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who maintain a position of neutrality during a time of moral crisis. And I think that's what Donald Trump has forced this country to deal with, and particularly the Republican Party. You just can't be neutral, not in the face of what we just saw.
They're sure trying. It's
I know.
It's somewhere between funny and pathetic,
It's funny because we laugh to keep from crying, but I mean, but I think that's one of the positive aspects. But it's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to take time to root. It took damn near 50 years, did it not, to root the Dixiecrats out of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, true.
It took 50 years.
And a bunch of them just became Republicans.
And they became Republicans. That's what I said. You rooted them out, and then they transplanted themselves. And thanks to what's his name with the Southern Strategy. The
Nixon.
Southern Strategy was about
and Lee Atwater.
Lee Atwater. That's the person that I'm thinking about. Lee Atwater. Lee Atwater just simply transplanted them over there.
Yeah, and he did a very effective job at it, and thank God David Korn found that audio of him, just basically laying it out to people.
I play it. I play it all the time.
Donald Trump began his campaign with racism. I mean, his entire life has been about racism. From the time he was a kid working for his dad and writing the letter C for colored on rental applications. But he began his campaign with racism. He's been explicitly racist throughout. He's now, his latest racist, hand grenade has been arguing that Joe Biden didn't win by 7 million votes. Those were all fraudulent votes in large African-American dominant cities, Detroit and Philadelphia and Milwaukee and whatnot. I mean, it's just a continuous thread throughout there. How much impact do you think this is going to have? How far back has the 4 years of the Trump presidency set America? What kind of impact is this having on young people of all races?
Well, I got to tell you, when you asked that question before the break, I wanted everybody to stop for a moment and look at the mob You didn't see old white-haired, blue-haired women on crutches and in handicapped scooters trying to break into the Capitol. These were young white people, male and female, climbing the walls, breaking down the doors. Those are young people. My goodness. So, and I'm kind of laughing to keep from crying because it really answers your question. Those are people who are in their 20s and their 30s. So understand, they're going to live maybe 30, 50 more years. And God forbid that they educate their children. But can you imagine if you saw your father or your mother? But why am I saying this? Wait a minute. The zip handcuff guy, his mother just got arrested. You know, in Kenosha, the mother drove a 17-year-old with a gun, a loaded gun, who ended up shooting people, and they didn't even live in the state of Wisconsin. How long does the impact? Once again, it depends on the education, man, and who does the educating. Dr. Martin Luther King, great quote, and I use it all the time, and it's not the "I Have a Dream" speech. Dr. King said, and he has a book of sermons, and Dr. King said that the two most dangerous things on the planet are sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. And that's what keeps perpetuating what we're seeing. That's the mutation. Sincere ignorance. People just don't know. They just don't know. And they're not taught the history. They're not. You do a great job at educating your audience about things we didn't. That not what the history books taught us, but what people had to read beyond textbooks that are often chosen because they miseducate people. But then what Donald Trump played on, and he really said it before he ran, and that is since conscientious stupidity. And now here, remember, he said, I love the poorly educated.
Yeah.
He said that. I love the poorly educated. We are the smartest people. That is a combination of what Dr. King warned us of. It is a combination of sincere ignorance. I love those who don't know. And I get to use conscientious stupidity to convince them of my way of thinking. And then, of course, he has disciples like Blue Dogs, Fox, and these second-tier conservative right-wing talk personalities who dominate our platform.